right now, right? So everyone wants to cut nearing summer. Some people still, right, might want to bulk and put on size depending on the body type, where they're at in their lifting, workout kind of journey. And everyone, right, who's an athlete wants to perform better and be stronger. And it's funny, sometimes you see like the ideal athlete, right? It could be a Pete Alonso on the New York Mets that's a tank, but not lean by whatever means, right? Or it could be an NFL lineman that's incredibly fit and still a huge guy. Then you see people that are leaner and performing, people that are leaner and can't perform, right? So from a kind of an overall nutritional scope for someone, where would you start? Where would you give yourself that basis, and what would you start to do?
Yeah, from overarching thing that I'm always going to kind of start with people is I just want to know about your food quality. Like that's kind of the big thing. I think no matter what, like no matter who we are, we can always do a little bit better with our food quality. And there will be a lot of people that, you know, they want to track macros and they want to do this and they want to do that, and they've got 1,000 different things in their mind. But at the end of the day, they're really not just consistent with like what I used to call the basics, which I now call like the fundamentals of just like healthy eating, right? Or you know performance function eating is like, what is your food quality? Like how consistently can you eat good food and can you eat in alignment with your goals, right? And I think that's the big thing. So before we start intermittent fasting or you know counting macros or all these different things, I think it kind of does come down to that fundamental kind of just like, okay, like what are you consuming? How often are you consuming it? How is, you know, your control of your hunger? How is your management of your energy levels and your sleep and things like that? So it's usually where I kind of start with people is like, get just a good grasp and a good idea of like, what are you actually doing every day, right? And from there, then we can start to build a plan, right? Because I think the worst thing that we can do is, you know, start whatever, you know, try to go to level 100 from 0 on day 1. And you know you're never going to make it there, right? So what I like to do with people is figure out what's the level that we're starting at, and then we start to focus on those fundamental things like food quality, and then we start to build out some kind of a nutrition plan that's going to fit, you know, the scope of what they're going to be able to stay consistent with. And you know, a lot of people think that has to be something that's perfect, and in all honesty, you know, I've coached literally thousands of people at this point. And there's been no one that's been perfect, you know, it just doesn't happen, right? So it's largely just about kind of understanding, you know, I think scaling back a little bit, getting a really good, realistic understanding of like what is your actual capabilities and how can we start to make improvement based on those capabilities. And then as those capabilities improve, then we keep scaling up and stepping up, right? So you can still make it to a level 100, but you're not going to do it on day 1, you know, so.
Yeah, I think it's a really good points that you had in there, in that thing about the three of us, where in the fitness, health, and wellness industry, but we don't eat perfectly all the time, but we eat consistently all the time, right? And I don't mean that in consistently eating food, but we eat your probably the diet and the quality of your nutrients is consistent. If you stepped out and looked at 12 months of what you're putting in your body, right? So 85, 90% of the time, it's going to be good stuff. The other 10, you're allowing yourself to have kind of whatever you want and whatever you want to treat yourself with. And it's just getting that concept, and for people to be able to understand and feel comfortable with that, that they'd actually be able to make some change and reach those goals.
Yeah, totally. And I think that comes with like time in the game, improved knowledge and understanding of nutrition as a whole and how it affects your body. I mean, I used to be in the same boat, right? Like this has been an evolution for me as well. I probably started this, I mean, in I would say like 2008, so whatever that is, whatever that's been, 16 years or something like that. And I used to be one of those people who thought everything had to be perfect all the time, or else the wheels were going to fall off and everything was going to go bad. And then the more I actually learned, you know, kind of got away from like the bro science and like reading bodybuilding.com articles and whatnot, and got a little more into like the actual science of things and how it all works, and then started to kind of like get a better understanding and a better trust in like my body and its ability to utilize food, right? And kind of how that all works. Like then I started to gain more trust, and then you gain a little bit of leeway, and then kind of the pressure comes off a little bit, and then everything gets a little bit easier, right? So I would say even for me, like it's been a constant evolution over the last 16 or whatever years it's been, and it's still an evolution, right? Because that's the crazy and the cool thing about like nutrition science is that it's constantly, you know, in flux, and there's new information, and a lot of it's garbage, you know, and there's some good stuff, and it's like trying to, you know, weed through, and then also just, you know, with life changes, right? Like, you know, I'm not 20 years old anymore. I'm not a college or professional athlete. I'm, you know, unfortunately, I'm like pushing 40 here. That's why,
You can't tell.
yeah, I know. Well, that's what I'm trying to prevent. But, you know, so over the course of time, like things change, right? And like it just, your goals change, your, you know, your outlooks change, and also too the time and attention that you have to give to the approach changes. So you just got to be able to think on the fly. But I'm a huge believer, like, in that knowledge is power. That as long as we understand these fundamentals of like what are the things that are going to impact our nutrition in the most efficient way possible, depending on like how much time and effort we have to give, then we can always put our best foot forward.